Well, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. This is Sound Advice with audiologist Doug Leonard from ASI. True or false, Doug? Eating a lot of turkey helps your hearing. I hope that's true.
Well, it helps you take a nap. I know it's in the tryptophan or something in there that'll make you drowsy.
I was really hoping stuffing would do that same thing, but
well, I mean, I love turkey, and so I'll put that theory to test.
There we go. Now we wanted to talk a little bit about, you get some interesting patients and stories that kind of come through every once in a while, and you recently had a woman who has had issues with wax in her ears.
Yeah, I mean, it was just an interesting situation because she came in and, just sitting there visiting with her, you kind of can get an idea of how a person hears if you're talking to them in a normal voice and they're asking you to repeat things. They obviously have some hearing loss. There are also people who have significant hearing loss, but in a quiet room, sitting 3 feet apart, can still have a normal conversation. And she was one of those people, she didn't have any obvious signs of hearing loss just in visiting with her. She had been referred in because she had gone to a primary care physician, and she mentioned to me that she'd had her right ear cleaned out when she was at the doctor's office. And she just had this unusual thing that when she said she heard fine, but when she took her finger and pushed above her left ear, so right above that little piece of cartilage called the tragus, when she pushed in and lifted up, then she couldn't hear out of her left ear. And so, of course, I didn't exactly say this to her, but to myself, I was thinking, well, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because then you won't have a problem. And also thinking, of course, her doctor had cleaned her right ear out, so I assumed both ears were clean.
Yeah.
Went through a little bit more case history and got to the point where we were about ready to test her hearing. So I did look in her ears. And, of course, her right ear was great. It was very clean. But she had a huge accumulation of wax in her left ear. And so that was the issue. When she pushed in on her ear, on the cartilage above her ear, and lifted up, it kind of changed the geometry of her ear canal a little bit. And there was a little gap where sound was going through when she wasn't touching her ear. But when she moved her face, it caused that gap to close off. And she could tell immediately she just wasn't hearing. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, this is kind of an interesting situation, But in reality, she was 100% right. And so we actually, John, proceeded with the evaluation. I know a lot of people, and maybe even her mind, thought, well, if I got a bunch of wax in my ear, why do I want to test my hearing? Well, we use insert earphones. So those are like little foam earplugs. You roll them up, put them in a person's ear, and they actually kind of expand out. And they kind of held that ear canal open. So when we did the evaluation, the wax, even though it was very significant, did not affect the hearing test. The hearing in that ear was actually identical to the other side.
Oh.
And so, what I encouraged her to end up doing is go back to her primary care and have it cleaned out. Because she was probably within, a few weeks or a month or two of more wax accumulating and then completely occluding the ear full time instead of just when she pushed on it.
I say moral of the story is always get them both cleaned when you're there.
Well, I don't know if her doctor might have been running behind or maybe just, just didn't quite get a great look at it. But,
figure if it's there in one ear, it's going to be there in the other ear, too.
Yeah, maybe the complaint was my right, at the time, maybe her right ear was plugged and then the physician just cleaned that out. But, that's why it's so important to do otoscopy, meaning doing a good look at people's ears. It's important that your provider has a good otoscope, and has experience with looking in ears because the ears are hard to see sometimes, or wax is hard to see. The eardrum can be hard to see depending on the size, shape, and geometry of the ear canal. So just want to do a good thorough exam.
You want a good audiologist? And we got one for you. Doug Leonard from ASI here in Carroll. What's the phone number, Doug, if somebody wants to set up an appointment?
Yeah, 792-5933. And as you said, we want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and a safe holiday. And
we're going to test out that turkey theory, too, and let you know about that one, too. Sound Advice with Doug Leonard from ASI.